It is a fantastic one as we find ourselves at the Houghton Golf Country Club here in Johannesburg. And that is because today marks quite a significant occasion. It is the 30th anniversary. Today marks the day that the Springboks won that historic, their first Rugby World Cup title. It was at Ellis Park. And of course, we remember those images that were splashed all across different media outlets of Nelson Mandela then handing over that Webb Ellis Cup to Franco Pinau, who was the captain at the time. So, of course, in terms of remembering that historic victory and really what it meant for the country and how it has helped the Springboks right now to find themselves as 4 times Rugby World Cup winners, we have roped in Mr. Captain Fantastic himself, and that is John Smith. He, of course, captained the Springboks team that lifted the Webb Ellis Trophy in 2007. John, thank you so much for making time for us on SABC. You know, we talk about that historic moment in Ellis Park when the Springboks did the unthinkable against the All Blacks. You were 17 at the time.
I was 17 actually, and if I think back now, I was Form 4 at the time. I think that's grade 11 these days, and at the time rugby really wasn't a job. The game hadn't been professional, and I had one of my best mates, Dave Tubb. His father gave him 2 tickets, and so he took me to the game. So I was actually sitting at Ellis Park in 1995 as a 17-year-old, and it was such an unbelievable moment because obviously played rugby and was keen on the game, but that day for me was so significant in so many ways. You know, the things that stand out for me, and you're sitting there as a teenager and the Boeing comes over and this occasion is massive and you think it can't get any bigger. And it was a year after our first democratic election, and Madiba comes out in his number 6 jersey with his cap, and the crowd started chanting Nelson, and I honestly believe that was the moment that really put us in position to be able to win that game, because everyone, specifically that team, which I think are the pioneers of putting us on the world platform, the first team to play in a World Cup after segregation. So it was really that moment when I heard this Nelson, and I thought, maybe one day I'd like to be on that field, you know. So we've got a lot to be thankful for that team, and they meant a lot to us, and those images will never die. You know, it doesn't matter how old those guys get, we will play those clips over and over again, because it was such an important moment in such an important time for South Africa, and it had a huge impact on me.
I just want to know what you were feeling at the time, that extra time drop goal, Joel Stransky. How were the emotions?
It's a difficult thing to explain, because when you're a fan and a supporter, it feels like it's life and death, and the anxiety and the pressure that you feel as a supporter, because you've got absolutely no power over the results. And to go into that situation where it came down to a drop goal from Joel Stransky, you know, you think to yourself, you know, that could have, the margins are so small, and that one drop goal, and I know it was so many minutes beforehand, but that one drop goal literally put us on the world stage, not just in rugby, but as a country in terms of where we were a year after democracy.
You said something so significant about how when you looked at that moment, how were you in the stadium, you just felt that this is something I would also like to do and represent the country. And that is exactly what you did, winning the World Cup in 2007. That pressure and the responsibility to emulate the success of 1995, how is that?
You know, it's an amazing thing, pressure, and we all work in our ways, whether it's in our business or whether it's in our teams or wherever it is in our families. We work towards trying to create excellence, and we put ourselves in these pressure situations. And South Africa has just been unbelievably resilient when it comes to those pressure situations. And we're not just talking sport, across the board. And so for me, you know, when I eventually got the chance to start, and I started late in 2000, 5 years after the World Cup, and there was always this, we need to be able to replicate what these chaps of 1995 have done. And you know, you put yourself in that position, and I'll never forget, I was Thursday night before the final, and I was restless and I was nervous about the final, and my wife was like, you know, what's your problem? Why aren't you sleeping? I was like, well, there's a pretty big game, you know, and we haven't done this for 12 years. And so you can use pressure in multiple ways, but I think it was a group of players that realized that there was a story told to us by Morné du Plessis, the manager of that team, the Friday before when they handed out the jerseys, and he said South Africa needs new stories, new heroes, and that's exactly where we've sort of put ourselves, just to be in a position to be able to do that. And then we look at this group of players that we've got now and what they've done in terms of transforming the sport in terms of this country and what they've done. And I just, if I could ask one question, I'd love to see what Madiba thinks of this, looking down in terms of what the Springbok team has become and what they represent to all of us now. And now I'm back in that unfortunate position where I'm in the stands worrying about every kick, worrying about every line out, and the anxiety, I think, is what drives us, and we love that. It doesn't matter what's going on in our lives. The Springboks win on Saturday. Monday's going to be okay.
I love that, against the Barbarians. I actually just got goosebumps when you spoke about, Madiba Magic and what he would think of the 4-time, now that we can say proudly, Springbok Rugby World Cup champions, just in terms of the Springbok brand and the badge of the Springboks. Where do you see it at the moment, and how big can it even get?
Well, I think we've got to see this, I guess, the growth and the evolution of the brand, because if you think about where Madiba was when he was rallying, he was wearing a Springbok cap getting booed, and he was telling everyone that this was going to be a team that brought us together. And I wonder if in his wildest dreams he thought that this team that we currently have, that represents us so much. I think back then, if we looked at a percentage of people that loved the game, watched the game, played the game, it would be such a small percentage of our population. And then I look at what Sia and Rassie have done over the last 2 World Cups, and I look at the composition of that team, and I look at the people everywhere, from the guy that's filling your car with fuel, to a headmaster of a big school, to a CEO of a big company, to everyone. And everyone feels invested in this team. And I just think he'd be so proud of what the Springboks have become in terms of what they mean to us as South Africans as a whole.
It's so amazing how 30 years, post this victory, we were even talking about it inside in terms of now we are also unified as a country, and that's where it started. You are an avid golfer yourself. People might not know that this morning you were in contention. Tell us about how that panned out.
Avid golfer is probably a better way of saying enthusiastically under-talented. So we came here with good intentions today for a golf day that has, again, brought us all together because of 30 years of unification from that win. But the cause behind this is really because everyone here is participating in township rugby and the development of that. And the more kids we can get into the game, the better. So I'm saying that story so that I can get away from exactly how badly I played today.
No, you need to tell us, because the prize giving will be getting underway very soon. And once you tell us that as well, the most important question is what you have just alluded to at the moment. How do we make sure that we get more kids from the townships, from the rural areas, really coming through to the Springboks and representing the national team?
Well, I'm not expecting too much from prize giving, but I do think that the second part of your question is the important one. And I think that's where I really believe everyone has an impact. Our ambition is to give every kid, girls and boys, access to the game, and if we need to be able to do that throughout every echelon of society, and the more people we can get involved in the game, and such a small percentage will end up playing for South Africa, but the life lessons that the game of rugby teaches, I think, are synonymous with what makes South Africans. There's a bit of grit that's required, there's a bit of discipline, there's a respect, and there's hard work, and I think that's really what the game instills in our youth, and our youth is the future of our country. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, John. Really, Unathi, when we listen to John and what he has done for the country, captaining the team, and also just how he speaks about that 1995 team that made history, and of course where we are as a country, where rugby is at the moment, and what it can look like in the future is absolutely exemplary. Of course, we will be continuing to find more guests who are here at the Houghton Country Club. It is this momentous occasion where we are celebrating 30 years since the Springboks won their very first Rugby World Cup title, a historic occasion. Madiba Magic at Ellis Park defeating the All Blacks.